Vince McMahon's legal team claim that the criminal investigation is over. Plus, the Wyatt Sicks storyline has been very suddenly dropped, and future plans for the World and the IC titles have been revealed. It's all in the Cultaholic wrestling news right now. Vince McMahon's team of lawyers say that the criminal investigation into their client is over. In a new statement, Vince McMahon's lead attorney, Jessica T. Rosenberg, has said the following: the recent federal investigation resulted in no criminal indictments from the SDNY, while the SEC settlement relates to minor accounting issues at WWE that have nothing to do with this case. Any claims to the contrary made by Janelle Grant's team are just another desperate PR stunt.
Federal prosecutors opened a criminal investigation into Vince McMahon back in 2022, and prosecutors for the Southern District of New York have been investigating allegations of misconduct and trafficking against McMahon dating back to the 1980s. Another investigation from the SEC concluded with McMahon being fined $400,000 and ordered to reimburse $1.33 million to the WWE.
People close to Vince McMahon have claimed to the Wrestling Observer in recent days that the criminal investigation is indeed over, and McMahon was told on January the 9th that the investigation from the Southern District of New York has been closed. CNBC has also reported that the Department of Justice have ended their criminal probe into McMahon and won't be charging him.
Ann Callis, who of course is Janelle Grant's attorney, claimed on January the 10th that the criminal investigation was still ongoing. Vince McMahon, meanwhile, issued a statement on X saying the case was closed. The Southern District of New York does not respond to inquiries about the status of investigations.
Now, even if the criminal investigation into Vince McMahon is over, McMahon remains a defendant in the Janelle Grant civil lawsuit against himself, WWE, and John Laurinaitis. This was filed in January of last year, accusing Vince McMahon of trafficking, assault, as well as physical and emotional abuse.
And Vince McMahon is also a defendant in the lawsuit filed by 5 former WWE ring boys, which alleges that McMahon and others were fully aware, as the quote, of the alleged sexual abuse carried out by Mel Phillips, but they did nothing to prevent or stop it. The ring boys lawsuit has been paused until the Maryland Supreme Court decides whether the Maryland's Child Victims Act is constitutional.
So there is still some legal wranglings with Vince McMahon and his team, and when we know more about all of this, you'll know more at cultaholic.com. Yeah. Now, on Raw last night, the Wyatt Sicks story with The Last Testament was very quickly scrubbed.
Good evening. They've been moved to SmackDown. Let's do something else now, said Karrion Kross to his boys.
It's basically what happened, because they were gearing up for a multi-person tag match against the Wyatt Sicks, and we just got a shot of Karrion Kross coming out of Adam Pearce's office, just going, oh yeah, they've got a SmackDown now.
Yeah, because Karrion Kross he was hell-bent on revenge, was Karrion Kross. What Nikki Cross in particular has been doing to my wife, he kept saying, he scared my wife. Sorry, it's 2025 now. You can't be saying my wife like that, can you?
I say it all the time at home, my wife.
My wife. But yeah, he was hell-bent on revenge for what Nikki Cross has been. He's just been scaring Scarlett, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
And now it looks like he's not going to get that revenge. No.
So a lot of people are sort of saying that this might spell the end of the Wyatt Sicks stuff in general, because it's moving away from the feature time on Monday nights to SmackDown on a Friday night. I don't think this is the end of it. I think that with a story like that, you don't want to do loads all the time. You have to walk that fine line between keeping them relevant, keeping it interesting, and having an end game, having a strategy.
Yeah.
And I fear that this Wyatt Sicks thing is kind of going a little bit off the rails, like we don't quite know where we're going with it. I kind of want there to be a beginning, middle, and end to a story like the Wyatt Sicks.
Yeah. How do you think about SmackDown now being 3 hours until June at the very earliest? They've got a lot of TV time to fill there, so maybe moving a couple of Raw people who might not be as a focal point as others, getting them on SmackDown might be a good idea.
I've heard a few people mention that we might possibly see, this is more sort of speculatory rather than reporting, maybe the Judgment Day move to SmackDown as well, as a way to get them away from the Terror Twins. Now that's all done. Maybe at Mania we get Judgment Day versus Wyatt Sicks.
My goodness me.
Yes. Could be a thing.
I don't know, it feels like there's going to be a lot of infighting with the Judgment Day, especially with Liv Morgan now treating Dom like poo after Dom went after Rhea last week.
Treating Dom like a sub.
Yes, exactly. And Dom will abide.
He certainly will. Well, one that we'll keep an eye on, of course, but expect to see the Wyatt Sicks popping up on SmackDown. Maybe The Last Testament follow them to SmackDown and they carry on forever. Who is another Steiner heading to WWE, Ross?
Potentially. That is the news this morning. Jacksonville State University wide receiver Brock Steiner. Please don't change his name. Don't call him Ron Raker or something like that. He's been offered another WWE NIL deal according to his big bad booty father, Scott Steiner.
Yeah, Steiner told Busted Open Radio that the deal comes despite the rough relationship that he had with Triple H and WWE 2003 Royal Rumble. If you were there, then I salute you today.
Great match.
It was a match. Of all the matches I've seen, it was one of them. Steiner said on Busted Open Radio, I left with a lot of hard feelings, but at some point, you've got to let it be. You can't be angry the whole time. You can't hold a grudge. I don't want to screw up anything for my nephew, Bron, so I buried the hatchet. A matter of fact, Hunter called me the other day, probably 3 weeks ago, and offered my boy an NIL deal.
And I can see why, because that picture has been going around like a car around a town, Tom. Everyone's seen it. I don't know where that was going from. But look at him. He's a Steiner. He belongs in wrestling. He's doing the pose with the chainmail, my goodness.
And that is a car that we could see around the town of WWE soon. Is it too obvious just to put the Breaker Brothers?
No! Do it! They'd be fantastic together. Let them be as Scott as they can be in 2025.
Yeah.
Get fat.
I reckon call him Breaker. That's just
Ron and Bron.
Ron and Bron Breaker.
It writes itself.
It writes itself. Let's look to the world title and the Intercontinental title, because before we get to the Royal Rumble on February the 1st, we've got the return of Saturday night's main event and some big plans for both those titles, including involving one of the Breaker Boys.
Yeah, Bron this time, not Ron.
Not Ron.
Yeah, last night on Raw, Sheamus defeated Ludwig Kaiser in a wrestling match, and because of that wrestling match victory for Sheamus will now go on to Saturday night's main event and challenge for the Intercontinental Championship against Bron Breaker.
And there was a little tense moment between the two after Sheamus won that match against Ludwig Kaiser. Are they going to give Sheamus the IC title? It's the only thing he hasn't won outside the George Cross and the Nobel Peace Prize.
I wouldn't mind a few heartbreaking defeats for Sheamus before he eventually gets it, because it is the one thing. He's going to become the ultimate crown champion or something they're going to call it. That means you've won everything, including King of the Ring and a Slammy for match of the decade or whatever. All of the above he's won. But Matthew had a fantastic idea where Sheamus is Mr. Money in the Bank and uses that to cash in for the IC title.
I love that.
And after a few heartbreaking defeats, that would be a nice way to go for Sheamus this year in particular.
I really like that. So Sheamus and Bron Breakker at Saturday night's main event. Also, Raw's world champion Gunter was interrupted last night by yeeting Jey Uso. I tell you what, there was a great moment in this bit where Jey Uso challenges Gunter for a world title match. And Gunter cuts him down and says, look, you've got you've got everything, you're fun, you're cool, but when the bell rings, you're just a very good tag team wrestler. Ooh. And Jay was therefore, when he was getting serious beforehand, the crowd were yeeting between each word like it was the what chance. And he was talking to Gunter, and he started talking, the crowd started going, yeet, and he went, no. And fair play, they stopped the yeeting. So all we had to do all these years with what is have one wrestler go,
stop it now.
Nah, stop it. Because Jay had masterful control, and then he let them have a big yeet at the end, and it was all fine. Jay had put on the gram start of the year that he wants to be a world champion this year. I don't think this is the time that he does it, but it's certainly putting him in the stratosphere.
I wouldn't be surprised if it did happen though, Tom, because Jey Uso is maybe the most popular man in the world ever.
Oh my gosh, just when they do those pan outs as he's coming towards the ring and all the crowd are doing the yeet.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that some of the greatest creative in wrestling never necessarily came from creative meetings. That came because Jey Uso and Cody got battered at a press conference. That's where that was born.
Yeah.
I love that for them. So 2 title matches already set for Saturday night's main event in the run-up to the Royal Rumble, which is coming up in just about a week and a bit's time.
Yeah, it's not too far away.
Gosh, January's flown by.
It has.
Oh my God, time is never stopping. Hold and Give later today.
Yeah, 4 p.m. on the Hold and Give YouTube channel. Go on the homepage of this YouTube channel to the yellow circle at the very bottom of the page when you scroll down, on desktop especially.
Especially on desktop.
I've not even tried it on mobile. I assume it's there on mobile, but yes, 4 p.m. Hold and Give. It's got a yellow thumbnail.
If it's 4 o'clock right now as you're watching this, then just go there now, quick.
Yeah,
go.
Set your notifications. You can hit a remind me thing when I go live, and I'll see you there.
And for the latest wrestling news at any time, you can check out Cultaholic.com. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.